earliest fishing memory, I think, is white perch fishing. My grandfather was a big white perch fisherman. My dad's from Natchez, Mississippi, and his father was a big fisherman, and my grandfather was to fill a cooler up with white perch and fill the freezer. And I remember just real early on a white perch fishing trip, all those perch going into a red igloo cooler, and there were a bunch of real Cokes. Is what I remember. It smells like a real Coke. That memory does. So yeah, I remember early on perch fishing. So
that's funny because when we lived in Michigan, we would perch fish with my grandfather and my dad. We'd go out into Saginaw Bay and just basically put 3 hooks on a spinning rod and just dump it over and pull it up, and there are 3 on there for some reason.
Yeah, eager fish to catch.
Yes, yes. I don't even know if I'm sure we had some type of bait on it, but I don't remember what it was, but I swear it almost seems like going out in the ocean and picking up.
I have no memory of the technique, just that there were a lot of fish and real Cokes, and I was real little. So
did y'all eat them later?
Yeah, I used to have a freezer full, so I remember that it's been quite a long time now, but that was a good memory.
That's back when we fried everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
Not healthy anymore. But
no, not healthy at all, but really good.
Delicious.
Nonetheless. All right, well, welcome in, folks. I'm talking to Blake Parsons, and Blake is the current president of the Music City chapter of Trout Unlimited. Welcome to the podcast, Blake.
Thanks for having me.
We are sitting downtown Nashville, so you might be able to hear the construction. There's a pile driver across the street where they tore down a building where Blake and them used to go back and cast.
Yeah.
They tore it down, and now they're putting 2 20-story buildings, you said?
That's what I hear. I don't know. You never know the construction rumors till they start going up. But it's going to be something over there that's a lot bigger than what was there before. So
there are construction cranes, and there are lanes blocked off. 440 is a mess.
Hopefully that wraps up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it's getting closer. We'll see.
They did a pretty good job on it.
Well, we're sitting inside Fly South, and we're in the media room where they show movies, I guess?
Yeah. The shop used to be an old kind of high-end home theater store. It was divided up into a number of little theaters, really, and Jim Morris, who owns the shop, kept one when they renovated the store, and it's a handy place for popping movies on, letting kids hang out. There's a popcorn machine still in the back, so we can round out the experience.
So I want to come down here one Saturday morning and just watch cartoons like I used to.
We can do that. Yeah, we can hook it up for that.
Some Bugs Bunny going on.
Yeah.
Well, Blake, thanks for coming out for the podcast. This one is going to be pretty close to the normal format, but we're going to get kind of technical in some of the things that are going on with TU and some of the things going on possibly with the Caney Fork, with the dam repair. We may delve into that a little bit. So you're the current president of TU. Let's talk about that just a second. How in the heck did that happen?
Yeah. So I've gotten that response from a few people, but it's really been a great experience. A number of years ago, middle 2018, I had been on the river on the Caney Fork and noticed some issues that had been present for quite a while. It was especially bad in the middle of that year. And back here at the shop later that day, a few of us were sort of kind of recounting that and discussing the issues, and sort of were motivated to finally get TU's presence renewed in Middle Tennessee. It's had a long history here and kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, but that summer was really a motivating factor to really fire it up again. And as usually happens when the group of people that initially stand up and do that, you get assigned with something. And when we sat around that table, I was the one that came away as the president, which I'm really happy to do. Give my time back to that. I've been fortunate to fish a lot of places and be a lot of places that other people have taken care of and stewarded. And it's, I think it's my turn to take care of that for a little while here.
So you went from perch fishing to the president of TU, right?
Right, yeah, it's a big jump. Yeah, there were a lot of years between the two, but one I think definitely probably still has something to do with the other one. So
yeah. So how did you start fly fishing? Because that's really what got you kicked off with TU. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I grew up in Memphis, outside Memphis, and developed a duck hunting habit there late in high school and college. And my dad had got into fly fishing, and it seemed like a pretty good way to spend the other 10 months a year outside duck season. It definitely offered some warmer opportunities. And so my earliest fly fishing experience was eastern Arkansas, northern Arkansas, the White River, the Little Red River, the North Fork with him. So it kind of pushed out the duck hunting habit and took over. And people have said over the years, you don't choose your passions as much as they choose you. And I think it's really a truism now. I think you never know what's going to kind of influence your life. And it's taken me to some cool places. And I've been really fortunate to fish a lot of places and see a lot of awesome things for it.
Memphis folks tend to gravitate towards the white and the little red over in that area. I'm actually from Memphis as well.
Yeah.
And I would go fish on the white with my grandfather and my uncle and a couple friends of the family. And they kept talking about, I want to come to the Caney Fork, because they would hear about it as well.
Right. Back in kind of the heyday there.
Yeah. Which is kind of what we're looking at for again was the I'm using air quotes here, the heyday of the Caney. And in all fairness, and for full disclosure, there have been some dam repairs going on.
Very necessary. Nothing that was overreaching or anything. It's something that needed to happen.
Yeah, I love to listen to the people like, hey man, you know what? If they would fix the dam, we wouldn't have this problem. I don't know why they have the water so low.
Right.
Well, because they're fixing the dam.
Right.
It's better if they go ahead and fix it than flood out everything below it.
For sure.
I bottom lined it there, but really when you get to it, I would rather them fix it than me be on it one day, or I've got friends that live below it.
Yeah, if you're in the dam pool below Center Hill, you get the scale and the magnitude of the water being held back, and it's something you want to make sure is structurally sound and responsibly maintained. So,
as with all dams.
For sure.
So we were talking earlier about the water quality, that sort of things, and I can think of a couple years where they were working on the dam, but the water quality was really pretty good. I mean, we had some good summers. Mm-hmm. Even late in the summer, it was good.
Yep.
But other years, still working on the dam, the late summer water quality, like last year, it was lacking. That's probably the best way to put it. And I think that if you look back in the spring and early January, February, March, April, some of May, if you don't get a great big rain event then and you have kind of a drought, the fishing seems to be a little better.
Cold water storage is a major factor. Those years, and it hasn't 2016, 2015, you can remember some fairly recent years that fish health was better, fish numbers were better. Those are years that coincided with, these deluges we've had 2019, 2018. It just necessitates flood control that runs a lot of that cold water storage out. I think hopefully moving forward with that lake returning to normal pool, scheduled to return this year, that cold water storage should be less impacted moving forward.
With your work with TU, do you delve into that kind of thing with the Corps to get to know that? Because I'm sure you get a lot of questions around that.
Yeah, it's one of the factors. I mean, it's definitely, I think if you were going to ask any TU member, anybody familiar with that in the mid-state, the number one thing they're going to ask you about is the water level and the water temperature in the Caney Fork. There's some other aspects beyond that affect habitat and health. Those are the two hot spots primarily, especially over the last 10 years, primarily over the last 3 or 4.
We've suffered through some years, and it'd be like kind of a slow summer, but then it would pop right back, and that was just maybe the fish were somewhere else and that sort of thing. But if it lingers, the conversation starts bubbling up.
Totally.
And as it bubbles up, people start talking more and more, which is exactly what happened to you with TU, isn't it?
That's exactly how we have found ourselves in this position, yeah. And there's some other aspects of it. I think that TU's a recognizable brand. It's got a lot of history. A lot of people have been members over the years, have had family members be members. So it's got a really well-rounded mission. It's been an avenue for us to draw some attention to these issues locally, but TU has a multifaceted mission, and they work on some national issues, some wildlife, some wild place protection, ecosystem protection all over the country. Alaska, the West is primarily where people think their money goes for TU, but a lot of that does stay here locally. Pebble Mine is probably the most recognizable national issue right now. The protection of Bristol Bay is a main focus of TU nationally, but we do have some hyper-local work going on here from an education and conservation and stewardship angle as well.
I think I've been, guilty of this or however you want to put it, of saying, you know what, TU, I see all this stuff that they're doing, but I don't see any of it in my backyard. But
right.
Now I do. Now I see y'all, you and the rest of the group are really pushing to talk with the Corps. Once the dam is situated and straightened out, that y'all are talking with the Corps, trying to give some input for the anglers, not just fly fishermen either.
Correct. And we really like to focus our message on habitat and stewardship. So take care of the fish, the fishing takes care of itself is kind of the old line. And one of the main aspects of the renewed presence of TU here in Middle Tennessee is rebuilding some of the communication channels that had previously existed between the Corps of Engineers, Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, TWRA, TU, had all been in communication and had worked closely together. The dam work that we're talking about has been going on for more than 10 years. So there have been periods of that where those groups were closely aligned and more communication was a very regular thing. And the lack of that communication introduced some of the issues, and there just wasn't a lot of attention being drawn to issues far enough ahead of time to head them off at the pass. Middle of 2018, one of our main goals was to have the Corps of Engineers, TU, TWRA sort of in communication, singing from the same songbook and highlighting some issues that, while they may not be core priorities, are within the Corps' ability to affect and find common ground to do those things.
So we've got folks like I know a group of folks from Atlanta that like to come up and fish, and they're actually part of a chapter down there, the Cohutta chapter. That's right. a strong group down there.
Yeah, there's 3 chapters in greater Atlanta area, and it's a large presence.
Right. Yeah. There's 6 million people down there too, so it's a little different, although it feels like there's 6 million people in Nashville
maybe
today.
One day.
But later we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do, some next steps and that sort of thing, to kind of give you some help with some of the things that you're working on. One of the things so after TU left, I guess, Nashville, it kind of started going down a little bit, I guess is maybe one way to put it.
Yeah, it had a long presence, and I think the nature of those groups generally is that there's a renewing event here and there, and I think we just kind of got to that point with TU. So the Cumberland chapter has been kind of reinitiated as Music City Trout Unlimited, and we are middle 2018. We're almost 2 years into that effort. So
I was a member of TU. Then that happened, and I thought, I'm just going to buy the license plate.
Right.
So that should support something in Tennessee. That was the way that I looked at it, because I wasn't close to any other place to be a member, to where I felt like, okay, my money is going to something that benefits me, not necessarily as a guide service, but I thought, well, this will give some horsepower to something within Tennessee.
Yeah, and that license plate has been a driver in a lot of improvements. Currently managed by the Tennessee Council. Those funds go to the Tennessee Council. You have to check me on this, but I think it's $15 from a renewal, $17 or so from a new registration. It goes to fund efforts throughout Tennessee, typically from Middle Tennessee to East Tennessee. There are quite a few plates in West Tennessee, though, so there's a strong presence for that across the state. But it's been definitely an economic boost for the council and the council's work,
which ultimately, hopefully, benefits me in some way as an angler.
Yeah, it should, definitely. And I think our presence in Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee, is going to draw some of that benefit back to our area. And talk to you just briefly on, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, namely the Caney Fork. The Elk River also is sort of in our geo and has some things going on there that we're going to be working on as well in the coming years.
Okay, good. Did not know about the work on the elk. I love the elk.
Great river.
I used to go down there whenever I just wanted to get away.
Right.
I would not tell anybody. I'd just get in the car, tell my wife I'm going fishing, going to the elk. She'd always, you're not taking the boat? No, I'm just going to go down there. I haven't done that in a few years.
Good walk in the woods, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then go down there like late on a Sunday afternoon. I went down there one time on a Sunday afternoon, like late. It was almost dark probably by the time I got there, got set up, got out down to what we lovingly refer to as the bend pool.
Right.
Roll out on that gravel bar, and I'm fishing for probably a good 20, 30 minutes. And it was late fall, and there was nobody. I was the only car in the parking lot.
Yeah,
it was fantastic until the family of otters rolled in, and they didn't
came to fish your hole.
Well, yeah, it was like they were coming in. They didn't circle me, but they all kind of lined up in front of me, kind of in a half circle, and started barking.
What are you doing here?
Yeah. I felt very uncomfortable, so I left. I don't know what they did after that, but I couldn't. No, I couldn't focus. I mean, I could cast. They wouldn't move. They're a bunch of bullies.
No, yeah, it's like you see Canada geese around bass ponds, and they'll run you off a bass pond. So
yes, yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, what else is TU involved locally? So Music City chapter, and this really are all the TUs kind of the same. They kind of have basically the same program, or do you?
Generally, and there's some oversight or some leadership, I should say, from TU National to institute programs locally. Trout in the Classroom is a program I'm very proud of for us. I think we've...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's been a previous presence of it from the last chapter. University School of Nashville here in town's had a long-term Trout in the Classroom presence, and now we have a teacher with Metro Schools who's heading up our institution of some new classrooms for that. But essentially, it's a program where kids in classrooms are able to raise trout from egg stage to fry and then release them into local waters with a partnership of TWRA, so they're going in the right places to have the best shot at kind of sustainment. But like many things, if you can get kids involved and get them interested at that stage, it's something that they will hopefully carry with them for life and sort of build a base of conservation and a mentality of stewardship that they can learn early on. And Trout Unlimited has been really successful with that program nationally. It's been a really bright spot for TU's efforts.
Charity Rudder and I talked about that in Townsend as well. Yep. They have trout, and then they've had it for a while. Trout
Long
in the Classroom.
Time. Yeah, at Little River Outfitters in Townsend, there's a Trout in the Classroom tank example there. Uh-huh. It's a pretty impressive operation. It's a dedicated staff and volunteer corps that keeps it going. Power outages that you don't think of, holidays in schools, and somebody's got to be there every day, changing water, cleaning water, making sure it's cold. So it's not a light undertaking, but it's something I think has a deep impact. So we're proud to have that renewed again here in Nashville and have some schools come into that program.
TU works with TWRA.
Yeah, so we have a board member who's a teacher in Metro Public Schools, and she is going to partner with TWRA kind of on the logistics of that. She's going to start one in her classroom, and hopefully in the next year or so we expand that to several other classrooms.
Oh, fantastic.
It's also a great way to get kind of a trout presence in some non-traditional trout areas. So
Right.
Columbia's had some interest, some in Williamson County. So, places that while they're close to the Caney, they may not have ever experienced a trout fishery, seen trout in the wild. So it's a great way to have them kind of understand the life cycle, the ecosystem, and then why it's important to take care of that.
TWRA does stock some trout around Columbia in the winter
That is
stocking
true,
program,
yeah.
so they probably
Have heard
about
about it
Yeah.
and get a little more real hands-on examples of that. So
I'm sure there's probably more places around the state where we could get stocked trout and then just leave them and they would be fine and
They probably would,
reproduce and
yeah.
that sort of thing. I don't know how all that really works. I mean, I've got my theories, but
yeah, I think so.
there's
I think
definitely some cold water around this state that hasn't been tapped into.
so. Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for kind of outreach and education on that aspect.
The more people that know, the more opportunity we end up having in the end.
Definitely.
Which is good for us, the angler. So as we're going through talking about TU, I want to jump back to the dam at to Center Hill Dam. This kind of it's following the same path that probably Wolf Creek followed. It looks like, in general, not exactly.
I'm less familiar with the exact repairs there, but there was definitely a period of the same low water control through Wolf Creek, and anybody who's been on the Cumberland below Wolf Creek, that fishery is strong.
Right.
It's had some real high water events over the last couple of years just for the rain events in the spring, but I think it's a great example of how that fishery can be properly managed and come back from post-repair timing. So
yeah, and it's starting to turn the corner. I'm starting to hear, although they're pretty tight-lipped up there.
Yeah, you got to get on it. It can be a big river too, and it's something a little tougher to learn, but it's a good example of what we're kind of aiming for over the next few years, because I can remember not that long ago when people just wouldn't go to Burkesville, Jamestown because it wasn't doing well. And then again, properly managed post-dam repair, good water quality, it's a strong fishery again.
Right. And and I say the Caney is following that with the repairs to the dam. So they're working on the saddle dam right now.
Yeah. As I understand it, the main dam repairs have been completed for a good bit now. The saddle dam was finished up late last year.
Oh, okay.
The impoundment there, they were doing some concrete work, I believe. The schedule has been to complete that structural work end of 2019, and now we have moved on to repair and rehabilitation of the generator turbines in the dam.
So they've got one of those up on the top of the dam now, just sitting out there. It's pretty good size.
Yeah, I saw your picture. It's immense.
Yeah.
It's a huge piece of metal.
Yeah, it's like the size of my SUV, tall and got a lot of blades. You can see where stuff has been hitting it over time.
And those, I think I may check this, but those are the original implementations of the turbines. So the turbines are replacing those with will be what they call auto venting turbines. So they have baffles in the hubs, and they should improve the dissolved oxygen content in the water that goes through the generation tubes.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that's been one aspect of the water quality that, has needed to be improved, is the dissolved oxygen content. The DO has had some bad swings over the last few years.
Right, and then some of that is due to the temperature of the water. Is
Correct.
that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the rumor I'd heard. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if that improves it. It makes sense that you would oxygenate the water and fish would be happier. So if I bottom line it, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
So the top of the dam, talking about storing cold water, the top of the dam is like 696 feet, almost 700 feet. That's where the roadway is.
Yep. That's sea level elevation.
Yeah, from sea level, right. Yep. Above sea level, I guess I should say. And then the tailwater itself at zero flow is 476 feet above. Mm-hmm. So that's 220 feet difference, I guess. The base of the dam is 446 feet above. So it's 446 from the base. Then the tailwater, top of the tailwater at zero flow or water level, we're going to float your fly. Is 476 feet, and then the roadway is to 696 feet above sea level. Interestingly, the top of the closed gates, the spillway gates,
yep,
is 685 feet above. So it's about 10 feet below the roadway, and that looks about right. I've seen it from both sides.
If you see that lake when it's really high from the road, it's not too far below the road.
You mean like today?
Yeah, definitely like today, yeah. And I think the last I checked it earlier today, I think the lake elevation was 654. They've come up to flood pool with all the rain we've had going through. So,
and they've got I don't remember how many gates, or 6 gates, 7 gates, something like that there. And
if you've ever seen the spill gates running, it's immense.
Yeah, all but one were running a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
maybe it's a few days now. Yeah. So the river's up and I'm not on it. Even I'm not on it.
No, yeah, 22 I think it was running today. So.
Yeah, that's a little high for me even. I don't know. It just becomes a fast boat ride after about 13,000. You're just like,
yeah,
okay,
you guys start watching for bridges at some point.
Yeah,
It's not fun.
And you don't want to put your head down to tie a fly on because you're 100 yards down the river before you even get the...
Yeah, I won't name them here, but I know guys have floated it at those extremely high levels, and I don't think it was as fun as they thought it was.
No, it's not as fun as what you think. It's not. Absolutely not. So the powerhouse is at 525 feet. So that's right there, and you can see it. That's what it says, Center Hill on it, where all the windows are.
If you're facing the dam from the riverside on the right.
There's about 200 feet worth of stuff that you can see there from the water level all the way up to the top of the roadway. And there's cold water storage in there, which is really what we're looking for.
Correct. More of that.
I look at it now and see the water coming over the spill gates, and that's water that's just falling. That's not as bad as running, 3 generators all winter long. At least they're taking water off the top. And my small brain says that maybe that's a better thing. The lesser of two evils. Best thing is to store it all starting in November and come up with exactly the right math to make it work when September rolls around.
And so what we've seen over the last 10 years or more, they've held it down 20 feet. So we've been at 628, and we should be somewhere in Summer Pool at 648. So that's, again, 20 feet of water. And if you're familiar with Center Hill, it's a sizable reservoir, so 20 feet of water, and that provides quite a bit of cold water storage from the inflow at the back at Great Falls Dam up to Center Hill Dam.
So I'm cautiously optimistic, raising the water level back up to where we want it once the dam's fixed. Number one, the dam will be fixed. Let's start there. The dam will be fixed. Probably be a little bit of work going on around it for a year or two or whatever. Raise the lake back up. Some good cold water storage. That gives us another 20 feet throughout the lake, which is quite a bit. I couldn't do the math, but I'm sure somebody...
We've tried, and it's a whole lot of water.
Yeah, right. That's where I end up. Yeah, that's a lot of water. Okay. That, and then some baffles on the turbines. So I'm cautiously optimistic that over the next couple of years, fishing can get nothing but better once we get the lake back to where it needs to be.
I agree. And, one thing we've chatted about here a lot in the shop with folks that come through is tailwaters generally sort of are looked at versus wild fish. But the benefit of a tailwater is properly managed, you can restore it probably quicker than you can some wild fisheries. So hopefully with the aspects of being able to control the dissolved oxygen, being able to control the inflow, being able to control the cold water storage in a better way, we see some of those years in the not too distant past in the Caney Fork that would probably support that fishery much better.
I remember my very first trip down it with folks. One of them was a son-in-law, father-in-law. Larry was the father-in-law, and he had lost both legs. He was a vet. And James with his son-in-law. Of course, Larry just sat in the front of the boat, and we started on high water. At that time, one generator was high water for doing a trip. Now it's not quite as intimidating as what it probably once was. But Larry just sat up there, and we threw streamers. And he was a rod builder. He was a long-time fly tyer, a long-time angler. So he would sit up there, and he just threw streamers. And, I mean, he killed it.
Wore him out.
Killed it.
Yeah.
And James kind of struggled a little bit because he had just really kind of started. I mean, he had fished some, but he certainly hadn't had the years of experience that Larry had. But they turned the water off, and we were maybe a mile down the river. And when they turned the water off, it came to life. We caught a carp. Yeah. And then it was right after this carp. It's amazing. I can still remember this trip because it was such a good trip. But they caught over 60 fish. That was our tail. We caught over 60 fish, or they did. I didn't catch any. They caught over 60 fish, and that was a normal day at that time. And
some size, and you used to see a variety of year class fish in there, and some sustainment that you could track over a period of years. Which down the road from today, that's really our goal with TU here locally, is to be able to get back to a stocking and management strategy with TWRA where we can rely on good water, distribute fish through the river, track the ecosystem, track recruitment, track sustainment. And get back to those days like you're talking about.
Yeah, that's my measuring stick. And I've had better days than that, but that's going to be my measuring stick. When it gets back to that, when you can get a couple of folks, one's a really good angler and one's still learning, and they're doing that well, and you're catching, like you said, there's some nice fish mixed in. There's some small ones in there.
There's always going to be, but you got to have the small ones to get to the big ones. So.
And let's face it. I mean, that keeps us entertained until we get there.
Right.
Yeah. I'm all about catching some small fish in between the big ones. Heck yeah.
And
Who isn't?
years ago, if you know where to look, you could find a sulfur hatch or here or there.
Yeah.
You could find a cast hatch here or there, and I'd sit there and catch small fish on dry flies all day. It's just watching them eat, and those are still there. Those aren't gone. So if we can have that river health come back and have those fish spread out through the river where there's cold water for 20 miles instead of 6 miles or 8 miles, there's a lot of habitat there that can be really trout sustaining farther down the river like it used to be.
I've sat in a pocket of sunlight that was as big as the boat, probably maybe not even quite that big, and just flies hatch popping off and casting flies in there to them. And it's just because the sun was there and it was just the right time, and it was really, really good fishing dry flies.
Yeah.
Nobody was really doing that would talk about it. But that sort of thing going on downstream where there's some different types of hatches going on, and you're right, they're still down there. I mean, you can float that lower section now, not the lowest lower section, but probably 15 miles down to about 20, and there's plenty of hatches going on down there.
It used to be, it was a little bit before me, but when the water was very cold at Stonewall, and that's, what is that, 13? Yeah, somewhere that far down, you can get really cold water down there. And there's a lot of things that live in that river that need cold, healthy water. If you mentioned carp, one of the wildest days I can remember is mid-April and watching a buffalo spawn run way up from the Cumberland, and my wife was floating the river with me, and I had the oars in the water and the anchor down, and carp were hitting the oars. I mean, you could walk across their backs, and I focus on the trout in that river, but there's a lot of things living off that ecosystem that cold, healthy water really is sustaining for. So it's got multiple benefits beyond that. So
yeah, that buffalo run is a blast.
It's wild.
It's you can take a black and silver clouser, and spend all day just catching 10, 15 pound fish. I don't know, they're probably close to that.
Yeah, they can be. And there's some. That's a whole nother podcast for carp talk, but there's some wild stories about that in Middle Tennessee. So I know some Brentwood shopping center retaining ponds that have held some giants. So.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about TU, your upbringing.
Yep.
A West Tennessee boy.
West Tennessee, flat as it can be over there. Came over here to the hills.
Yeah, this is big hills to us.
Yeah.
Whenever you first see them. And then we talked quite a bit about the dam and the dam repairs on Center Hill. There's some upcoming meetings with TU. With Music City TU and some of the folks that around the dam there. Can you talk just a little bit about maybe what's coming up?
Yeah, and this is one of those partnerships that was really a positive benefit of renewing the chapter. TWRA, TU have had a long, close relationship. A lot of folks at TWRA have been members of TU. They're very kind of oriented to the outdoors. The new benefit that's been a good partnership in the last year or so is Tennessee Wildlife Federation is what I consider to be a stakeholder in the issue as well, and they've been very helpful in sort of helping align some parties. So it's the combination of the Army Corps of Engineers, Trout Unlimited, TWRA, and Tennessee Wildlife Federation having come together in the fall and hopefully again in the spring with really the effort to kind of get to a solution that works for all the stakeholders involved. Anybody who was present in 2010 for the flood or is familiar with the Nashville flood, I don't envy the Corps of Engineers' job. They have a hard job. In normal operating circumstances, I think there's probably benefits that they can provide to the situation with the advocacy from Trout Unlimited, from TWF, and with the management partnership of TWRA. That's really our goal, is just to make sure those groups are talking, make sure those groups are doing everything they can in their normal abilities to support that fishery through water quality and water levels.
So everybody has their boundaries.
Totally.
If we can work within the boundaries, then hopefully we're all going to be better off.
Right. And I don't think we're not asking for, in my opinion, major changes to operational issues or anything like that. It's really finding out what we can all do within our normal operating boundaries to, first of all, affect the water levels, the water quality, which is really a core partnership.
Right.
And then the downriver management of that fishery with TWRA.
It's a good succinct way to put it. What can the average person do? So let's talk about joining TU.
Right.
Let's talk about it in general. Yeah. How do I do that?
So everyone who joins Trout Unlimited, you join Nashville, and you get assigned to a local chapter based on your geography, your address, your zip code. If you want to join us, we've made it fairly easy. You go to musiccitytu.com/join. and the steps are laid out right there. It's a quick click over to the TU main website where you can pay $35 and it's an annual membership. We get a large portion of that back to us directly to the Music City chapter to work on these issues with the Corps, with TWRA, that will impact your fisheries here locally.
If you're in Georgia, Alabama, Florida, wherever there's a TU,
right.
we're not trying to steal sheep here. So
right.
if you're there and you don't fish in Middle Tennessee, we totally get it. But I've got the license plate. Now I'm going to go back and renew my membership. Thanks for the link that you sent to me.
Thanks for coming back.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. I wouldn't have done it I don't think I would have done it yet if I hadn't sat here and talked to you. I hope the folks out there listening are considering joining TU if they haven't already, if you're not already a member. And you're in an area where you think you might, it's not necessarily just your money, right? So many people say, I'll give you some money. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I'm raising my hand as well. But what else can folks do?
Well, in the coming months, I'm sure that we're going to need your advocacy as well as we start to reach out to the core stakeholders, some other potentially legislative stakeholders, to really make our voices heard when we support these issues or these changes that need to happen. There's 800 members of Trout Unlimited in Middle Tennessee. It's not a small group, and if we get together with the additional voices who want to join us, I think we're really going to be able to move that needle and draw some attention to these issues in a way that would provide some long-term solutions.
And knowing that you've done so everybody can write, everybody can send emails and that sort of thing, but there's some groundwork that's being set now.
Right.
So that's the way I look at it. Y'all are doing your part. Things that you said you're going to do. Those will be done. Then you'll come back to a group of anglers and say, hey, we've already done this, and this. Now we just need some more horsepower behind it.
Exactly.
Which is really what you're looking for in that situation.
That's the current issue. That's the hot button issue that most people are going to think of. We're also going to do quite a few sort of community activities. We had a majorly successful Harpeth River cleanup in downtown Franklin. I think we took out 2,500 pounds of trash out of the Harpeth one Saturday last fall. We're going to do that again this year. We're going to get down to the elk. There's hopefully some landowner outreach to be done on the elk. I think, by providing some stewardship of their land, their river access, and making some inroads back to that fishery from an access standpoint, from a stewardship standpoint there, it's an important fishery that needs to be taken care of in our area as well.
It's a little gem that I enjoy. I enjoy going down there. I enjoy fishing it. And, if you don't do anything else, pick up a piece of trash and take it out with you. Sometimes that helps about as much as anything, really.
Definitely.
But
we do hold quarterly meetings. You may be familiar with other groups like this or the old Trout Unlimited chapters that had monthly meetings, and we find that, we have a little more purpose in our quarterly meetings. So you can find that schedule at musiccitytu.com as well. There's an events tab there that will publish details for upcoming meetings, cleanups, river. We're going to have a fall event that would be more of a trout days for some conservation educational opportunities. So the hub of where you can find our stuff. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, but musiccitytu.com is going to be the informational hub for that.
I'll put that in, as we like to call it, show notes.
Yeah.
Like that really means something. I'm not even really sure what that means, honestly.
Oh, the old podcast show notes.
Podcast show notes. It sounds pretty cool, but I don't know. Put a link in there. You can probably find it on my website as well. So before we go, I want to ask you you've heard about Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
4 presidents on the Facebook.
Man.
We're not going to ask you who the presidents are.
I couldn't tell you. I should know that.
We are going to ask you that if you had to pick 4 major rivers, Caney can't be one of them.
Can't be one of them.
Nothing, those 2 can't be because we've already talked about that.
Right.
But I want to know, what would your 4 biggest rivers be if you're going to put them on the face of a mountain?
Like I said, I'm a little bit Southwest Montana focused, so the Missouri River at Craig on a summer evening is probably hard to beat from a draft fly standpoint. The White River, because I think it's not quite east of the Mississippi, but it's pretty close. And I think for something in the eastern U.S., it's hard to beat from a variety of fish, size, length.
Let me throw another curveball at you. It has to be in the southeast, since this is southeastern fly.
All right.
So we've got the white. I'm going to count that as the southeast just because
right,
I've got the on and off button here.
All right. So the southeast, it's going to be the White River. The South Holston, I think, when you hit the South Holston right, they get grouped together with the Watauga quite a bit, but I think the South Holston, for my money on the right day, is the best draft fly fishing you can find. That sulfur hatch there is pretty legendary. I fished the Davidson River in North Carolina a couple years ago. It was a pretty neat river. I had never been on it before, and it was different than I expected. You get outside Asheville a little bit and get a little peace and quiet on the Davidson. It's one of them.
One more.
Where else?
There's a lot of water around the southeast, too. I mean, that goes all the way down into Florida. It doesn't have to be necessarily.
I will say a day on a skiff somewhere between Destin and Tampa, a little bit off the coast. You know, a tarpon days. I'm never going to pass that up. I'll be down there a couple weekends this summer. And, you know, as far as percentage fishing goes, it's not the way to go, but man, when it works out, it's pretty unbelievable. So, and it's not a bad part of the world to spend some time in. So,
no, it's usually pretty nice down there.
Yeah. The Panhandle, the White, South Holston, and the Davidson. Yeah, they're kind of variety of things you can find in those. Also, I'll throw a bonus one in there. A winter red fishing trip in the south part of Louisiana cannot be missed. I think you need to do that for sure.
Yeah, we were down there in December. February? We were down there in December, and just the food was fantastic. The fish were big.
Yeah,
weather was pretty good.
It's a pretty unique way to fly fish. I won't say it's easy, but it's one of those places where if you're not a long caster, you can catch some big fish.
Yeah. We got into some tight spots. And just hemmed the fish up.
Yeah, they'll eat too.
Yeah,
so it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I like they're my kind of fish. Some of them are big, and some of them are dumb, and some of them are big and dumb. And
right,
that's the kind of fish I like.
They're fun.
Well, Blake, I appreciate you coming out, man, or inviting us down to fly south, and appreciate Jim.
Yeah, thank you for coming down here. Thanks for having me on the show.
And for the listener out there, if you'll subscribe to the podcast, that helps us out. That helps expose us to more people. Most of all, tell your friends. Word of mouth, telling friends, that's how these things spread and get noticed. We're not really looking to sell anything here, but we do want to tackle some issues that are connected to the Southeast in general, not necessarily just Nashville. This one was about the waters around Music City, but we've had some discussions about stuff around Atlanta and other parts of Georgia. We'll be over in East Tennessee this weekend, talking to some folks over there. So it's not necessarily connected right to the South, to the Nashville area. We try to get out. We want to get out into some of the other states. But if word of mouth, that's what makes this engine run. We appreciate everybody coming out. Blake, thanks again.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate you having us. And for the listener, see you next time.